Hi everyone, let's discuss one problem and its solution of the modern web application. So as a web developer, we aware that web application is consist of front-end and back-end code. So back-end developers exposes the REST APIs and front-end developers integrate these APIs in the front-end application. Now question arises how a front-end developer will know about the API details like what is the URL, request body, response body and other information of the API. So to overcome this problem, API documentation comes into picture. This is a Swagger UI, so it will provide us a complete detail about the REST API. For example, here it's showing employee management API. So it's the title of this REST API and it also showing other information related to this API. Now here we can see clearly it has one employee controller and this employee controller is having two endpoints. One is get and second is post. So here we can see what is the path of this get API and what is the path of this post endpoint. Just click on any endpoint detail. So further it will provide us detailed information about this endpoint. For example, if we want to try this endpoint, so here try it out we can use. Just click on execute. So here we can see the response of the API. So it also provide us curl syntax of the request we sent, and here what is the requested URL, it's also showing here along with the response. So here in the response code is 200 and along with the response code it's showing the complete actual response of the API. Even it also provide us the information about the response headers used by this API. If we click on the post endpoint, we can see it provide us the required payload of the endpoint, and in order to know about the detailed description of the payload, we can use schema and it will provide us the name of the class which actually hold this information at backend. So this class employee bin will hold this information and it has three variables id, name and department, and further we can check what are the data types and example related to these variables. Moving to the coding part and integrate the Swagger API in Spring Boot REST API. So very first step is open pom.xml, and here we need to add one dependency related to the Swagger under dependencies. So this is the Maven dependency we need in the Spring Boot application to use the Swagger API. Just add this dependency and click here to load the Maven changes. Now execute the application and open the Swagger UI. So here use this URL localhost 8080. This is a context path of your application. Then we need to use swagger-ui slash index.html. So it will open the detail about your controller. So right now it is showing the default information available, like the title is default, Here it's showing controller name, then it is providing us the detail about the API. So Swagger provide us various annotations to customize this UI. Create a class to define the configuration related to the Swagger. Now use annotation at the rate configuration, and related to the Swagger API there is a annotation open API definition. Here provide the information. We can give here title, we can give description as well, we can provide version, and if requires we can also provide contact information as well. And here we can provide the name, and also email. So we created one class config, use the annotation at the rate configuration to designate this class as configuration, and specific to the Swagger API we used annotation open API definition. So here we need to provide info. To provide info we are using at the rate info annotation, and in the info annotation we can pass title, description, version, and contact information. Now save this application and execute. Okay, refresh it. So now UI of Swagger has customized as per the configuration we given in the Java code using the annotations. So here title changed, here this description changed, as well as the contact information also changed. So in order to change the information related to the title and contact, so this open API definition annotation we can use. But here in order to provide information related to the controller, we need to use few annotations in the controller itself. So at class level in controller we can use at the rate tag, and here we can provide name of the controller, then description as well. So we used at the rate tag annotation at class level in the controller to provide the name of the controller, as well as we define the description here. Now save these changes and relaunch the application. Just refresh this web page. So here this is the name of the controller, we customized, as well as this is the description of the controller we given in the coding. So this is the name of the controller we given and this description we given, and it's showing on the Swagger UI. So to provide and customize the details about any API we written in the controller, we can use the annotation @operation. Under operation, we can provide summary like this function basically add the employee and description. We can also customize the response information. Here we need to provide response code like 200 and description. So using this @API response annotation, we can define multiple response codes. Like for 200, we given description as imply successfully inserted. For example, in case of 500 response, we can also provide information. Just change the response code and description. It will be 500 and the description will be save the changes and relaunch the application to see the changes. So here, this is a summary of the endpoint we given, and this is a description of the endpoint we given in the code. And we also provide two error code related information. 200, we given message imply successfully inserted, and for 500, we given information something went wrong. So similarly, make the changes for get endpoint as well. Use @operation annotation, and under this there is a summary like list implies description, save it and relaunch the application. Now before refresh, see there is no description for get endpoint. Just refresh it. Now we can see the summary related to the endpoint and also a description. So let's recap regarding the annotations and configurations we used for Swagger. Now first of all, very important step is Maven dependency. So org.springdoc is the dependency we need to add in the pom.xml. Second is related to configuration. if we want to customize the information on Swagger UI, we can create a configuration class, create a class, and use annotation at the rate configuration to specify and designate it's a configuration class. And here we need to use at the rate open API definition annotation provided by Swagger API to provide the information like title, description, version, and contact information. Then, in order to customize the information related to the various endpoints, at the rate tag annotation is used at class level to define the name of the as well as to provide the description of the controller. Refer SpringDoc official website to know about the various annotations and configurations to make your API documentation more professional.